Greetings. We continue our lessons in terms of learning the metabolic pathways. This is ideally after we have already learned about all the macromolecules, that is starting with nucleic acid. Then we went through in terms of protein, as well as one of the topics very much relevant for metabolic pathway, that is enzyme. And then we followed suit in terms of carbohydrate. And lastly, we looked at lipid. So we start our journey in terms of learning about metabolic pathway by starting with glycolysis. So since this is the first metabolic pathway that you are being exposed to within the course of biochemistry, just for your understanding, normally the pathway lectures will be looking into every step of the pathway, the chemical or the biochemical reaction step by step. And also the metabolic pathway tend to be in phases or stages. So in that context, you can see that glycolytic pathway is actually divided into two stages, that is stage 1 as well as stage 2. The stage 1 is somewhat need to invest energy. So the system need to use energy, and that energy comes in the form of ATP hydrolysis. So ATP, in short, ATP need to be utilized here. In fact, there will be two ATP molecules to be hydrolyzed in 1 to 5 steps of this stage 1. Okay. Glycolytic pathway, total of 10 steps, and these are the first 5 steps where 6 carbon will become 3 carbon glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Therefore, in some books, biochemistry book, they also call this as hexose stage. And then you have stage 2, where energy actually return back. That means ATP is produced, and there will be a total of 4 ATP being produced at the stage 2, or also known as triose stage, because all these steps 6 to 10 of glycolytic pathway is actually involving 3 carbon intermediates. Okay, and there's also shown there the N ATP production because of the 10 steps of glycolysis will be 4 minus 2, that is net of 2 ATPs. So when glucose undergoes oxidation from glucose up to 2 molecules of pyruvate, the total number of ATP produced will be 2 net ATP, whereby at stage 1 need to invest 2 ATP, and at stage 2 it will produce 4 ATP. So that's why I got 2 net ATP. Next, we look at into what happens to glucose, or rather what happens to the pyruvate once it has oxygen, ample oxygen, or when there is also mitochondria is present in that cell. So under these two conditions, the pyruvate that is formed by glycolytic pathway of glucose will carry on until become carbon dioxide and water, and in the process it will also form NADH, FADH2, because in the Krebs cycle it will form both of these NADH as well as FADH2. So that's the effect of pyruvate. It doesn't stop at being pyruvate. It carries on into the mitochondria and become eventually carbon dioxide and water because ample supply of oxygen is present. So we just learned the fate of pyruvate under aerobic condition. What about anaerobic condition, whereby there is not enough of oxygen, or a particular tissue such as erythrocyte or red blood cell which has no mitochondria? So what happens in this situation is that the pyruvate will be converted to lactic acid. So lactate or lactic acid will be generated, and this is a partially oxidized intermediate where there's a lot of energy still found in lactate. So here given the summary in terms of fermentation, but I do not encourage to use fermentation for human body, or in that case animal body as well. Why? Because fermentation is normally conducted by microbes. So the best term is glycolytic or anaerobic glycolytic pathway, whereby the glucose will be converted to lactic acid or lactate in active skeletal muscle. But by microbe, it will be glucose converted to ethanol, done by microbes such as yeast. And this is where the industry of alcohol fermentation takes place, where beer and liquor is made by using glucose or macromolecules of carbohydrate is slowly digested and reacted upon by microbes.